As a kid, Angry Birds was my favorite series of all time. Whether it be the colorful characters, the simple yet addicting gameplay, or the fun stories people would create with the fun content, I and others had great memories with it. Nowadays, Angry Birds is a husk of its former self. But that doesn't mean we cannot celebrate the golden days of the franchise. Many argue on which is the best game of them all. One could argue that it's Angry Birds Classic because it's the one that started it all, Angry Birds Epic for its ambitious gameplay, or Bad Piggies because why the hell not? But I would like to make the argument on why this Angry Birds game is the most definitive, greatest, most symbolic of what the series stood for. Angry Birds Seasons. Okay, just hear me out, please. In this video, I'm going to try my best to explain why I think this specific Angry Birds game is the best that Rovio ever made, or at least why I love it above all else. Okay, you know the drill, history. After the explosive success of the original Angry Birds in December 2009, any logical person would capitalize on it, which is exactly what Rovio did. Merchandise, promotional animations, and new games. A sequel was something few expected, but Rovio did just that with the new Halloween levels. Back then, the sequel was literally known as Angry Birds Halloween, but after the Season's Greetings level pack in 2010, the game's name was changed to Angry Birds Seasons, and the rest was history. Across the many years of development, many more seasons were added with various gimmicks to spice up the fun. Abracadabra with magic portals, Ham Dunk where they collabed with the freaking NBA, and on Thin Ice where the best bird of all time was introduced. Finn! However, as most people know, a lot of Rovio's old games ceased development, and Seasons was no stranger. 2016 was the last hurrah as the final batch of Seasons were released and the final days of Pig Days were celebrated. After Ragnarok, the game was dead. Until 2018 where a random update that no one cared about was released. Then later, it got deleted from the App Store, blah blah blah, cringe Rovio moment. Now that I explained the history of Seasons, why is it so special? The gameplay just looks like Angry Birds Classic with extra colors. Well, you are right. But just hear me out, there's more, I promise. Angry Birds is a simple slingshot game, so it sounds like you can't really do much experimentation with it. But if Zun is able to make every new Toho game refreshing than the last, then the Mad Lads at Rovio can do the same. The level design has gotten more creative in this game as it has to fit into a certain theme like Halloween or Christmas, but it also helps that they have a certain new gimmick to spice things up. Like I mentioned earlier, every season features a new gimmick to the level design. You can argue that other games do their gimmicks better, like Zero Gravity or Wind Resistance, but again, just hear me out. Every season has a gimmick in the levels. Some are bigger and more memorizable than others, like South America only adding those Inca blocks and Hogs and Kisses those stupid clouds that are really annoying to destroy for some reason. But there are other seasons that do a better job, like with the Christmas levels, having an Advent-style calendar release schedule for the levels leading up until Christmas Day. Piglantis was the first to experiment with water buoyancy, creating interesting level designs, and Halloween and Back to School, introducing fan-favorite birds, Bubbles, and Stella respectively. Side note, the promotional video introducing Bubbles still goes hard to this day. Oh yeah. Oh, how can I talk about Angry Birds without mentioning the Golden Egg levels? Those are always the best levels where it did not matter if you had to get 3 stars or struggle to kill that one pig in the corner. You could just launch a bird in a specific location and watch a Rube Goldberg machine do its magic. I believe this game had the most in the entire series if you include the reward for 3-starring the season, or at the very least it does feel like it. A lot of the Golden Egg levels feature mechanics that you have learned and experienced throughout the level pack, which I feel is a nice reward for dedicated players. In later seasons, they feature special levels that you can get for a certain amount of stars, which I feel like is weird. It sounds a bit less rewarding, but I mean, more levels are more levels, so that's cool. But speaking of weird, Rovio made a few weird decisions regarding the mechanics throughout the lifespan of the game. Most notably are the coins and costumes. The costumes are fine, some of them featuring references to other media. They are nice, but don't do anything aside from looking cool and flexing your hours on the game. There are 2 ways of getting the costumes, grinding out achievements or buying them with coins. Now, coins are not the worst idea since they incentivize 3-starring the levels you missed and playing the achievements. Or, you know, you can get Rovio some good old dollar dues. But I think Rovio made a horrible choice when adding them. You see, whenever you booted up the game a long time ago, you can play any season you want in any order, at least from what I can remember, which was cool. But one day, Rovio decided to paywall the levels behind coins, which forced you to play the newer seasons. That was a pretty scummy choice since they were open a long time before, but at the very least they were not paywalled behind microtransactions. But I think this decision could have worked if Rovio released new premium levels that required coins to unlock. Oh yes, Pig Days. Pig Days were the best way that Rovio could have used the coins in the game, where every level that you haven't unlocked requires a few to get. For the levels themselves, they are not only fun and gimmicky, but also educational, featuring obscure holidays and historical events. They were pretty educational as a kid, like how was I supposed to know there was an International Milk Day? The Pig Days season actually holds the record for the most levels in one pack of all of Angry Birds at 91. So that's cool. Now, I think the gameplay is very solid and still holds up to this day, but there is one more thing I want to talk about. The art of this game is simply iconic. From the early 2011 seasons to the final days, the art was incredible. If you ask anyone off the street to draw an Angry Bird, they will look like this. Granted, the art style did change over time from the old school style to the toon style to the movie style? Ew. Nuclear take, but I freaking hate this style, man. It looks so jarring when you know it's in the same game as the previous two. The toon style gets a pass since it's still faithful to the original, but the movie just throws that out the window. They tried out the movie style for the app icon for some time, and some of the seasons too, but they did revert it for Ragnarok, so thankfully for the rest of time, my eyes can rest peacefully not looking at this. Well, I do like the backgrounds though. They have always been consistently pretty throughout the series. I especially love the background from Winter Wonderham. It honestly looks something I would see in Iceland during the Christmas season. But man, the music too from this season is just awesome. I'm sorry, but this is enough to make me cry. The music in this game is also iconic, especially from the earlier seasons. Find an old Angry Birds plush fan video and they will use a song from Summer Picnic or Back to School. I could argue that Star Wars or Epic has a better soundtrack, but I think Seasons had the most consistently good one.
I mean, how can you diss a soundtrack that had Finn's theme in it?
It does make good background music though. I'm surprised many other YouTubers don't use it, but dang, I just have one more thing to get off my chest. The merchandise. Remember when Philip DeFranco had Angry Birds plushies in the background? Ah, good times. But this was during the series' golden age, and man, there were so many great plushies released during this time. I have this Devil Redbird right here, which was likely released during Halloween 2010. His tail's all screwed up for reasons, but it shows how much I loved him. It's the same case with his pig here, which was supposed to have a pumpkin on its head. I remember wanting so many of the toys as a kid. The birds with Christmas hats, the Halloween set, hey, that Chuck looks familiar. And the St. Patrick's Day red. Okay, yes, they are kind of lazy plushies that have characters with different hats, but come on, just let me live my beat meal. Well, I don't really have much more to say about this game aside from the conclusion statement. Angry Birds Seasons defined an era in history of the series. Angry Birds Classic was the game that started it all, but Seasons expanded and made the formula better. It introduced so many concepts that became staples in the future games. It also helped that it was released during Angry Bird Mania in the early days of mobile gaming, back when developers somewhat cared. Maybe it's nostalgia, but I don't care. I still think this is the best Angry Birds. I remember begging my dad to update the game so I could play the Cherry Blossom Season Pack and having so much fun seeing the beautiful landscape. If you had any cool memories like that, please let me know. I read your unhinged comments, and it's wholesome to know that people have similar experiences to me when I was younger. In the meantime, my brothers, sisters, and slingshotters alike, I hope you enjoyed. Bye bye.